Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tarati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapata Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaraguna Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savarutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyvari Pashatare Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Okay, so today we continue chapter 2. Okay, let's continue from text number 12. I can read like first 2 and then we can change. And yeah, let's change always after 2 verses. Haribol. Natveham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayamatah param. Na, never. Tu, but. Eva, certainly. Aham, I. Jatu, become. Na, never. Asam, existed. Na, it is not so. Tvam, yourself. Na, not. Ime, all these. Janadipaha, kings. Na, never. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Na, not like that. Bhavishyamaha, shall exist. Sarve, all of us. Vayam, we. Ataha, param, hereafter. Translation. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishad, as well as in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, it is said that the Supreme Person of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities, in terms of their different situations according to individual work and reaction of work. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is also by His plenary portions alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to the perfect and eternal peace. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman tam atmeshtam ye nupashyanti dhiras tesham shanti sasvati netaresham. Katha 2-13. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that He Himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternal individual beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in the conditioned as well as in their liberated situations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual, eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons, Their individuality existed in the past and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. The Mayavadi theory that after liberation the individual soul, separated by the covering of Maya or illusion, will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence is not supported herein by Lord Krishna, the supreme authority. Nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in the conditioned state as supported herein. Krishna clearly says herein that in the future also the individuality of the Lord and others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. This statement of Krishna is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subject to illusion. If individuality is not a fact, then Krishna would not have stressed it so much, even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual but material. Even accepting the argument that the individuality is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in the past and confirms his individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad Gita has no value as authoritative scripture. A common man with all the four defects of human frailty is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of the living entities, how is it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sri Ramanuja and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like the bees licking of bottle of honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, and as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is a most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations made by the Mayavadis, and warns that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and of the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as above mentioned. Garibol, next one. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram jovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. 213. Word to word. Dehinaha of the embodied, asmin in this, yatha as, dehe in the body, kaumaram boyhood, jovanam yat, jara old age, tata similarly, dehantara transference of the body, prapti achievement, dhira the sober, tatra thereupon, na never, muhyati deluded. Translation. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood yachts to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a yacht, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body, and since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause of lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, from whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment of or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have either spiritual bodies in the next life or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause of lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a Dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable, against the principle of the supreme soul being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the Supreme exist eternally, Sanatana, and are called Kshara. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the person of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the supersoul who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma, who is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the person of Godhead Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the fourth chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity, Arjuna, who is a forgotten soul deluded by Maya. Haribol. Okay, who wants to be next?
I can go.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Matra sparshas kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukata agama payino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. Matra senses sparsha perception two only kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Shita winter, Ushna summer, Sukha happiness, Dukkata giving pain, Agama appearing, Apayina disappearing, Anitya non-permanent, Tan all of them, Titikshasva just try to tolerate, Bharata or descendant of the Bharata dynasty. Translation: O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport: In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, January, February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. Two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Yam hi na vyatya yantyete purusham purusharshapa samaduka sukham tiram som mritatvaya kalpate. Yam, one who, he certainly, na, never, yanti, are distressing, all these, purusham, to a person, purushara shapa, is best among men, sama, unaltered, dukkha, distress, sukham, happiness, dhiram, patient, sa, he, amritatvaya, for liberation, kalpate, is considered eligible. Translation: O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, and is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport: anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyasa, is a painstaking situation, but one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyasa order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a kshatriya, he is advised to persevere even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyasa at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause, he took sannyasa and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Thank you, Prabhus. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Saurabh, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Swami Prabhu, Dandavata Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhu.
Can you read next one?
Yes, Prabhuji, sure.
Okay, Haribol.
न सातो विद्यते भावो न भावो विद्यते सत उभयोरपि दृष्टनातस्त अन्नस्य तत्त्वदर्शिभिः. Okay. No never asto of the non-existence vidyate, there is bhava, endurance, no never abhava, changing quality, vidyate, there is Sato of the eternal, Ubhayo of the two, Opi, verily, Drishto, observed, Anto, conclusion, two, but Anno of them, Toto, truth, Torsivi by the seers. Translation by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the existent there is no cessation. These seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. Purport. There is no endurance of the changing body, that the body is changing every moment by the action and reaction of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body, but the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the truth, both impersonalist and personalist. In the Vishnu Puran, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jyotimsi Vishnu Bhavani Vishnu. The words existent and non-existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by through study of oneself. The difference between oneself and the Supreme being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutras, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. The living entities belong to the superior nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, the energetic is accepted as the supreme, and the energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. The living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance. And to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad Gita for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time. Can I continue or someone else continue?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you can read one more.
Okay, Prabhuji. Prabhu. Avinashi tu tad viddhi jena sarvam idam tatam vinasam abhaya yasasya na kuschit kortum arhati. Avinashi, imperishable, tu but that vidhi, know it, yana, by whom, sarvam, all of the body, idam, this, tatam, widespread, vinasam, destruction, abhaya asya, of the imperishable, asya, of it, na kusit, no one, kartum, do it, to do, arhati, able. Translation: know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Purport: these verses more clearly explain the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasure of the body in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasure of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000 part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Seteswatara Upanishad confirms this. Balogro Satovhakosya Satodha Kolpitosya Cha Bhago Jiva Sa Bijinya Sa Chanantaya Kalpade. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Siteswara Upanishad 5.9. Similarly, in Bhagavatam, the same version is stated. Kesagro Satovhagosya Satamsa Sadri Satmaka Jivo Suksmo Sarupo Jam Sankhyatito Hi Chitkana. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms, which are measured as 1/10,000 part of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spiritual soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basis principle of the material body and of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spread throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Eso nurutma chetosa vedito yasmin prano panchodha samabhivesa pranais chittam sarvam utam prajanam yasmin visuddhe vibhavate ese atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. Is situated within the heart and spread its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. Mundaka 3.1.9. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air, encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body. According to the Mundaka Upanishad, this atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. And because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientist, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul, and thus all the energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs gathers energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this position, activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabho or superior energy. Neither Vedic knowledge nor modern science deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body. And the science of the soul is explicitly described in Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself. Yes, Prabhu, like in this verse, like we also, I am a science student, so they are saying that this in the heart region there is like electricity is generating, like that's why that heart is pumping always. But they cannot explain from where that electricity is coming from because they cannot see that soul. That is the energy of the soul. But they cannot. They are saying that there is something called SA node, and from that, there the electric impulse is generating, which is pumping that heart, but they cannot say why that electric impulse is generating. They say that reason is unknown. I asked them. One of my friend is doing MBBS, so asked him.
Yes, Prabhu.
So he said that the reason is unknown. He's saying.
Yes, if it's just electricity, they should be able to put some electricity in there and make any dead body again, any dead heart again pump again. But they don't do it.
Actually, they actually doing that thing like this pacemaker thing by artificially just putting some electrode and thing like that, or that heart transplant thing, right? But Prabhupada also explained that that means that they are just changing that instrument, and soul is like transferring from that instrument to this instrument, nothing else.
Yes, Prabhu. As long as the soul is there, then the heart can pump. If the soul leaves, then the heart won't pump.
No way can come. Yes, horrible.
Hare Krishna, Vivek Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yes, sir. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble and have those Shishila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, please.
You
Can
can
I continue, bro?
Yes, Prabhu. Haribo.
अनन्त्वनाता इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्तं नित्यसुप्त शरीरनः अन्नस्विनो तमेष्यस्य तस्मद्युत्योऽसुवा भारत अनन्त्वथा permissible in me all these deha material bodies nitya eternal in existence Itaha. It is so said sharir sharirinaha the embodied soul anishinaha never to be destroyed apramishaya immeasurable tasmat therefore yudhya fight bharata the O descendant of Bharata. Translation: only the material body of indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subjected to destruction. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Purport from the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The material body is permissible by nature. It may permit immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so many that it cannot even be seen by an enemy. To say nothing of being killed, as mentioned in the previous verses, it is so small that no one can have any cause of lamentation because the living entity can neither be killed as he is, nor can the material body, which cannot be saved for any length of time, be permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is a part and partial of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decomposes. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and sacrifice the material body for the cause of religion. Text 19. Ya yenam viti hantaram yaschainam manyante hatam buhu so naji vijayanti so sorry vijayanito nayam hanti na hanyate hanya na yah anyone yenam this viti knows antaram the killer yah anyone cha also yenam this manyate thinks hatam killed both of them though they never Vijay Vijayanitha in knowledge na never I am this Anyati kills na nor Anyate be killed. Translation: he who thinks that the living entity is the sailor or that he is slain does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not nor in slain. Purport. When an embodied living entity is hurted by fatal weapon, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as is evident from the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Mahimasya Sarva Bhutani. Never commit violence to anyone, nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone who without authority is abnormal and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religions and not whimsically. Text. Can I continue, bro? Okay. Text 20. Na jayate miryate va kadachin nayam bhutva bahuvita vana bhuvya ajo nitya sasvato yam purano na hanyate hanyayamane hanyamane sarire na never jayate takes birth miryate never dies va neither kadachit at any time past present or future na never mm, na never no prabhu no prabhu no prabhu so na never ayaham this bahutva came into being bhavita will come to be va or na not bhuvya or or has come to be ajya unborn nitya eternal shashvatha permanent ahayam this purana the oldest now never hanyate is killed hanyamane being killed sharira by the body. Translation: for the soul there is never birth or nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. purport from the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, qualitatively, a small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutsatha. The body is subjected to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth in the womb of mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into ob- oblivion. 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 Okay, the soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and renewal. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc. of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man therefore feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct, neither the byproduct of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls and owning to the body. They appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad also we find a similar passage which reads Na jayate miryate va vipaschin nayam kutaschin vibhuva kaschit अजो नित्य सस्वतो यम पुरानो न हन्यते हन्यमन्ये शरीरे. The Katha 1.2.18. The meaning and the purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full knowledge or full always with consciousness, and therefore consciousness is the symptoms of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of the consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reasons, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there. It is therefore daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. These consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is born to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. So Krishna's teaching of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are 2 kinds of souls, namely the minute minute particle soul, Anuhattam, and the super soul, the Vibhu Atma, Anu Atma, Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way. Nor Anyan Matho Mahiyam Atmasya Jantor Nithito Ghuyam Tam Akruto Pashyati Vita Soko Dus Dhastu Prasadhan Mahimanayam Atmanam. Atmanah. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Can you continue, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
Let's
thank
read
you.
one more.
Okay. Text 21. वेदविन्यसिनं नित्यं या येनम् अजम् अव्ययम् कथं स पुरुष पार्थ कं कथयति सन्तिकम्. Veda is knowledge avinashyam, indestructible, nityam, always, yaha, one who, yenam, the soul, ajam, unborn, avyayam, immutable, khatam, katam, how, who, saha, he, purushaha, person, partha, oh partha, arjuna, come, whom, ghatyati, hurt, Hansi kills, calm, whom. Translation: O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person commended for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the course of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that murderers should be commanded to death, so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murder is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and as much as such, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate the man or rather the soul cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Revolt.
Prabhu, Prabhu, one question is there.
Yes, Prabhu.
Can I ask Prabhu? Prabhu, if like in uh, in dangerous situations, we kill the person, in fighting fighting or something else. In a dangerous situation, we killed by misly. Okay,
Yes, Prabhu.
then we commit suicide.
Mm,
True.
no, Prabhu, that's not in if enemy attacks. Like otherwise every soldier, every kshatriya would have to make suicide after that. But
Yes, Prabhu. That that is a question.
yes,
No, sir, Prabhu.
no, Prabhu. That I know just of this case that if there is some offender that is offending,
Yes.
that for example, one spiritual master, someone there's an offender to Krishna or someone, then one should cut off his tongue and then he should commit suicide. That, that I've heard. But it's not in case of an enemy if someone is like attacking with weapons or something like this.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhu.
See here in this verse it is said that
Yes, Prabhu.
in
In flattering a woman to bring her under control, in joking in a marriage ceremony, in earning one's livelihood when one's life is in the danger, in protecting cows and Brahminical culture, or in protecting a person from an enemy, and for falsity is never commended, condemned. Condemned.
yes, Prabhu. I want
Okay.
to see what is the definition of falsity.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Here it in the fact of being untrue, incorrect, yeah, doing something wrong. For example, killing.
Yes, Prabhu.
Not condemned if
Yes,
there is.
Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay, now
Hare
let's
Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
go.
Hari Bol.
चेतो दर्पणमार्जनं भवमः दावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावादू जीवनम् अनन्तं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्
नाम्ना मकारि बहुधु निज सर्वशक्ते शक्ति तत्रार्पिता नियमिता स्मरणेन कालाय तादृशी तव कृपा भगवान् ममापि हृदयं ईदृशम् ऐहज्जैनि ननुग्रह
तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तनया सदा हरि
न जनं न जनं न सन्दरेन् कवितं वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनीश्वरे भगवद्भक्तिर्हैत्कृत्वहे
नन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितां मां विषमे भवां पुतौ कृपा तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय
नयनं गदलम् गदारया वदनं गद्गदारुदया गिरा पुलकिर्निश्चिन्तं वपु कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति
युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्राविर्ष्यायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दविरहेण मे
आलिश्य वा पदारतं निपतिनस्तु माम् अदर्शनान्मरं हतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथा तु सवैव न प्रह Okay. The glories of the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtana moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. Humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction's moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always in experience.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all senses of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of birth and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Hari Bol, Shri Siksastakam
Hare Krishna,
Ram Sankirtan
Jai,
Jai, Panchatattva
Jai,
की जय, नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय,
Jai,
श्री कृष्ण
Jai.
चैतन्य
Jai,
प्रभु की जय, जगत गुरु श्री
Jai,
शांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय
Jai.
Jai,
प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल।
Hare